Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another very special, as always, episode of the Hyperconscious Podcast. We hope you enjoyed our latest episode where we talked about why jumping to conclusions will burn your relationship and everything else to the ground.
Oh, yeah.
Today, for episode number 321, we are going to do a Scratching the Surface episode, a deeper dive into the Drive to 5. The Drive to 5 is something that Alan and I have used extensively on ourselves, but we also help our clients with it, and we take a lot of we do a lot of like human behavior. We watch what people do and say, okay, maybe that person is lower on the Drive to 5, maybe that person's higher on the Drive to 5. So we are going to do an episode on that. But before we do, imagine yourself as the most confident version of you, doing all the things that you wish you could do, because you can do them. The only thing holding you back is your limiting beliefs. Imagine you with an extreme level of clarity, because you do deep down know somewhere what you want out of life. You're probably just afraid to chase it. It is my job as your coach to help you get around those limiting beliefs, to actually admit what's possible, and then to form a system of success for you to achieve that. That is what I do with my clients. And if you're looking to start a podcast, I can also help you with that or do it for you.
Peak performance business coaching, peak performance fitness coaching, those are two things that I'm going all in on mastering, and I want to help you as well. So imagine there's two people. One person can see, they're both doing a puzzle. One person can see the cover of the puzzle. The other person never saw the cover. They're both trying to do this puzzle. How much more difficult is it going to be for the person who never saw the front cover, never saw the vision, never got clarity to put down puzzle pieces? Your puzzle pieces are your daily actions. Kevin and I talk a lot about a system of success to get you closer to your goals and to keep you congruent with your core values. That is what I will help you design as your coach. Kevin will do the same. Reach out to us. We have 2 spots open.
And just even to think about it this way, like, my biggest coach is Alan, realistically.
I appreciate you, man.
Right? Like, I've learned so much from you, and I think I've taught you a lot about the other side of the Drive to 5. That's why we're doing an episode on this. But
100%.
if anybody is a good example of Alan's coaching and vice versa, it's me and Alan.
Right.
Because this is like what we do behind the scenes is we're coaching each other.
All the time.
Have you checked in
Literally
with your
constantly.
system? Yeah, that's one of the reasons why we've been able to make so much progress. So I want to give Alan credit on that, and also take credit for myself, because you won't give it to me. So what is the Drive to 5? The Drive to 5 is basically a measuring system, a scale of self-belief and self-esteem that we have taken over the past couple of years to really help people figure out where they are in the grand scheme of things. So picture this. It's a scale. On the left is 0, in the middle is 5, on the very right is 10. If you're a 0 on the Drive to 5, you have very low self-belief, you have very low self-esteem, you're not very confident, you're afraid to ask for help because you don't think you're worthy of getting it. You're afraid to take action because you're uncertain of the results. You're probably pessimistic, not because you choose to be, but in your mind, things usually are going to go badly, and they usually actually don't. If you're a 10, you're probably confident without results. And on both of these ends, you're not certain that you actually are this way.
Right.
Like, you don't know that you lack confidence.
This is usually running in the background.
Right.
This
It's
is not
like you're
something you're
subconscious.
hyper-conscious of. Yeah.
Right.
This is like, we figured this out consciously, at
28. Yeah.
29 years old. Yeah. So
if you're on the 10 side, you're arrogant, right? You're confident without results. You don't think you need help, so you don't ask for help.
Right.
You don't think you need to take action because you think by default you're already good enough.
Right.
You're probably a serial optimist, and you're probably a perfectionist.
Yeah.
You don't release your product because by the time it's time for you to release it, it's not good enough, and then it's time for you to do another product. So the only reason we figured this out is because we saw it in each other.
Right.
We saw it in each other, and then we very quickly realized, like, okay, well, us spending time together actually brought us to the middle. And 5 is you're humble, but you know you don't know everything.
Right.
You know you need to take action, and you understand that getting that feedback along the way is actually the key to success.
Right.
You're not afraid to ask for help because you understand you don't know everything, and this person is going to help you, and you have value to add. And what is there anything else?
You're optimistic, but you also You're optimistic, but you also prepare ahead of time.
Yes.
There's a lot of different facets.
It's where you want to live.
Right.
It's where you want to live because that's when you're in control. That's when you're being proactive and not reactive. That's when you're your best self.
You're the closest to the truth. That's when your character and the reality are meeting. Your perception, your ego is not. Imagine someone who thinks the world of themselves, but they're broke, they're out of shape, they don't take care of others. Like, that's delusion. So, Drive to 5 is you're grounded in reality.
Yeah, yeah. And so, another reason this is so valuable and so important is for you guys to get a grip and understanding on where you actually are. It's hard to say, like, I remember for me when it was hard to say, like, you know what, I have low self-esteem. I am not confident at all. I'm insecure. I'm actually insecure. It was very hard for me to admit that. But if you can admit that, you can start changing it.
Exactly.
And that's what this is all about. This is a way for you guys to not only become aware, but to start making actual physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual changes so you can become the best version of yourself. So, we wrote down some things on the whiteboard to go over and just touch on.
5 things.
5 things.
How fitting. A deeper dive into the drive to 5. Here's the 5.
To help you thrive.
To help fire.
Wow. I'm a rapper. I don't know if you know that or not.
I do.
I do.
I do know that.
Yeah,
famous rapper.
Well, not yet. The universe hasn't caught up yet. All right, so
so that's arrogance. No, I'm kidding.
you when you are dealing with the drive to 5, you'll know when you're not yourself. So Alan and I have told a couple stories about coming back from High Performance Academy.
Oh, yeah.
When I came back from High Performance Academy, for the first time in my life, I felt like I belonged. I found people who like to talk about what I like to talk about. I got a lot of value. I made a lot of connections. I felt good. And when I got back, I was a little bit cocky.
If you guys remember the episode with Summer Scalero, he had met Summer.
Yes.
And he was hugging everybody and just felt like $1 million about himself.
I felt like I belonged.
He exceeded his own expectations of what was possible. And I noticed this happens to people on the low end of Drive to 5. When they do get really good results, they do tend to think they're going to stay forever.
It's because you're basically, you've been given a tool that you've never used before and you don't know how to use it. So this is what I like to tell people. You're going to know when you're not yourself. Like when you start being arrogant, you will feel it. I felt it. I was like, oh, what is this? And I don't like it.
Yeah.
I don't like it. Now, does that mean it's bad that you go there? I don't think it necessarily is, because it gives you a taste of what it's like, and it also proves to you that just because you're low on the Drive to 5 doesn't mean you're going to stay there forever.
Right.
Like, don't forget, if you can go from a 1 to a 9 and realize, like, shit, being at a 9 is not good, on your way down, you can find 5.
Right.
That's the beautiful thing about this. You're always moving. So I had one of my clients, we were talking recently, and she said, I had this opportunity where somebody came over to buy something from me, and she was in my driveway for like 20 minutes. We had a great conversation, and I knew, actually, the lady said to me, like, this is the point where you should give me your business card and tell me what you do, because, we have rapport. And she literally thought, like, I know I should have done that, but in my mind, I didn't want to be pushy.
Right.
I didn't want to be pushy. You're not gonna be. If you're lower on the Drive to 5, you almost couldn't be if you tried.
Yeah.
It's very, very hard for you to go from one pole to the other pole. It's not impossible, but it is very, very difficult.
In this circumstance, if you're on the low end of Drive to 5, your concern should be not being assertive enough.
It should be, yes.
If you're on my end of Drive to 5, your concern should be being too pushy.
Yeah.
That's the thing. That's why the Drive to 5 is so important. Once you understand where you are, now you can be more effective.
Right.
At whatever your goal is.
Just imagine this. Imagine that you are so hyperconscious that you know in that moment, my mind, my insecurities are telling me that I don't want to come off as pushy. Hold on, I know that's just my insecurities, though.
Right.
So what would the best version of me do? They would say, in my own way, hey, I don't know if you know this or not, but if you're interested in this sort of thing, I actually have a business doing this. Here's my card.
Right.
That's not pushy at all.
Yeah.
That's not pushy at all. So you're always, and I tell people this is what hyperconscious is. You're always running this program in your mind of, this is who I really am. This is the story that I'm telling myself. This is how I break down the story. And that's what I told this client. Tell us about you a little bit. maybe.
Me?
Yeah, how about you? He laughs.
Number 2 is self-doubt.
You didn't even do number 1.
You want me to do, I thought I can't give an example for number 1
You
because I'm
can-
not on the low end.
You can. Well, you cried after HPA.
Oh, you want me to tell that story?
Yeah, I like
that's
that
what
story.
you want.
It's one
Okay, Kevin likes that story.
It's one of my favorites.
All right, so Kevin.
Tell us about the time you cried.
Yeah, so Kevin came off of HPA,
Feeling good.
feeling real good about himself.
Real good.
I came off of HPA on the opposite end of Drive to 5 because I got to see Brendan Burchard in action, and he was masterful at speaking, at working the room. The events were very, very well done. And I realized, holy crap, I have work to do, which for me was very humbling and actually really cool because now I've really stepped up my game. But when we got back, Kevin was
Feeling
flying high,
Feeling
so to
good.
speak, feeling real good about himself, and I was not. So I got really insecure, which is weird for me. So like, I didn't know what to do with it, and I just was like, "Dude, please, like, give me a hug. Like, please don't leave me. Like, are we good? Are we good, man? Like, you and I, are we good?" Because I thought he was gonna sail off into the sunset with all that confidence.
Right. Well, that confidence was short.
Yeah, and then within a day or two, we were back. So that's that story.
But I think it's important to know that.
Yeah.
It's important to know that like you will end up back at your natural state
Yes.
when this is what I have seen, Alan has seen, this is what will happen. My God. If you're low on the Drive to 5 and you get into a relationship, don't be surprised if you jump to the other end.
Yes.
If and when that relationship ends, you will hit rock bottom.
I know.
Because you've been relying on those railings for so long that that's not actually where you settled. So that is something to be careful of.
Right.
Number 2.
Number 2, such a powerful concept.
It
Number
is.
2, self-doubt feels off. So if you're on my end of Drive to 5, when you are in self-doubt, you don't feel like yourself. And you don't really know what to do about it because it's interesting. In this moment, I'm realizing like you spend so little time there that you don't really know how to handle it. Just like if you are on the low end of Drive to 5 and you do struggle with self-doubt and all of a sudden you have all this confidence, you don't know what to do with it. Kevin describes it as like a gun that's shooting everywhere because you've never learned how to aim it.
Right.
And when I have self-doubt, this is the darkest place for me. I either don't know what to do or I don't know if I can do it. And I don't even know if I know how to describe like how off that feels for me. I can't be funny. I don't feel like I can be giving and loving. Like my 3 words, exceptional, enthusiastic, and caring, in that order. Why? Because if I don't feel like I'm being exceptional, I won't be as enthusiastic. And if I'm not as enthusiastic, I won't be as caring. And so when I'm in self-doubt, I have a really hard time being loving and giving and believing in other people. So quick story. The last time I drank alcohol was in Westerly, Rhode Island, which is my aunt, one of my business coaches, got a house there right on the beach near Taylor Swift's house, actually. T Swift. And we had a big 60th anniversary for my father's side of the family, my father's mother and father. So my grandparents, 60 years together, they had this huge barbecue. It was amazing. Lobster on the water. It was incredible. And I ended up having a drink. I remember exactly what it was. It was a shot of tequila, pretty hefty shot. And I also had a couple other drinks after that. And then I remember walking into, like, I needed solitude. And I remember walking, I had a solo cup in my hand, and I walked, I think, to get something out of the car. And I had parked my car, like, a couple lots over. And I was walking in the dark by myself with a solo cup, and I just got kind of disgusted with myself a little bit. Because I was just like, what am I doing? Like, why did I drink? Why am I drinking? Like, this is not what I want to do anymore. So I ended up actually pouring the cup out in the grass next to this fence and just deciding like that was it for me. But I remember that I felt kind of off that week because when you set the intention to follow through on something and then you keep letting yourself down, I always say this quote, if you had a friend who broke as many promises to you as you've broken to yourself, how much would you value that friendship? Imagine if Kevin always said he would do something for me and then never followed through. How much am I going to value him? I'm not going to trust him. I'm not going to make more promises with him. So if you want self-esteem, it really does come down to keeping the promises you make to yourself, and that's when I feel the most self-doubt because I usually do a good job of following through on the things that I say I'm going to do for myself and others, and when I don't, I feel a lot of self-doubt. So I totally understand what that feels like. That's my kryptonite.
I think as you were saying that, I was think of the movement family speech for me. I was arrogant before I went into it. Like if you're not going to get the results you want if you're not balanced. Now, does that mean I should always go into things with self-doubt? No. But I do think I should play like an underdog.
You should play like you, like the best you.
Right.
And if
that
you're
person
trying to play like
preps.
me, you won't.
Why do I prep? Because I feel self-doubt. What if I can remove that self-doubt but keep the habits?
And keep the prep. Exactly.
And I think, for me, I went in arrogant, thinking
Just
like
I always try because I believe I'll
Right,
win. What if I can
right.
keep the belief
Exactly.
but get rid of the lack of preparation?
Exactly, and
Right.
that's what it is for you. So let's jump to number 3.
Yep.
All these things are just patterns of expectations. You are living your life through either insecurity, lack of confidence, or through arrogance and assuming it's going to go better than it will go. Just think of the things in your life that you have gotten. Like, I'm trying to think of an example for me. Like something that went way better than expected. Like the last speech at Top Notch Live. That went way better than I expected. Why? Because I thought it was going to go terribly because my filter is assuming it's going to go worse than it does. The only reason I have gotten so many opportunities to learn that it goes better than I expect is because I take action anyway. And that's something we're going to talk about in one of these other things. But I just think that it actually locks it in for you. If you assume it's going to go worse than it does and you take no action, you've just proven to yourself that you don't have to take action and you get to avoid the pain, which means you also do not get the pleasure.
And which will bring more self-doubt.
For
Because
sure.
then you're just proving to yourself that you're not worthy.
It perpetuates it.
Right.
It perpetuates it. Imagine stepping up to the diving board and not knowing how to swim. But every time you go there, you say like, "Oh, today's the day." You're eventually going to get to the point where you're like, "You know what? I don't even want to learn to swim anymore because I've worked up so much of this in my head." When it literally is the same difficulty level it was at the beginning.
Right.
You waited.
Yeah, you built it up in your mind.
Talk about your pattern of expectations.
So patterns of expectations. So I tend to think things will go better than they do, especially in the short term. So Top Notch Live, I didn't do as well as I had hoped, and I didn't do as well as I thought I would. And that tends to be the case. And that doesn't. What's interesting about this is that both of these have weaknesses and strengths. The Drive to 5 maximizes the strength of each side and mitigates the weakness. So if you're on Kevin's end, the strength of it is that you over-prepare and you come in prepared and you have a level of humility and a lot of times high awareness because you over-prepare.
Yeah.
On my end, you usually have low awareness. You don't understand what it's really going to take to win, and high confidence plus low awareness equals arrogance, and you're going to fail more. So one of them, the weakness is on Kevin's end that you're not going to try. On my end, you might not try because you don't think you have to, or you might try but under-prepare. So Drive to 5 is basically getting rid of the weaknesses of each end. For me, punctuality is the best example that I have for pattern of expectations. So in my consciousness, I always somehow believe that I can get more done in a certain amount of time than I can. And so because of that, it's really difficult for me to stay on time. And I noticed that other people on my end of Drive to 5 tend to struggle with timing. Whereas with Kevin, it's like he shows up early because he's preparing for things to go wrong.
Always.
I'm assuming things will just work out, so I don't prepare for the things that could go wrong. So when things do go wrong, I'm late.
Right. And things more often than not go wrong.
I know.
Right? And for me, more often than not, things don't go wrong when I'm always early because the things I thought might go wrong didn't go wrong.
Yeah.
But this is the thing, like knowing that about Alan knowing that about me. Why am I in charge of logistics? Because that's my thing. That's one of my specialties. Right? Why is Alan in charge of like the long-term cogs, the long-term dominoes? Because that's his thing. So you can also use it as a strength as long as it's not controlling you. Use it to control your circumstances, but don't allow it to control you.
Right.
Because that's when you really start to get in trouble.
Where do you think you are right now?
On Drive to 5?
Yeah.
Interesting.
I feel pretty centered.
Yeah, I feel like I've gotten so many results that I once dreamed of that, yeah. The problem is I haven't been able to go to the gym.
You don't feel arrogant though, right?
No, I don't.
Yeah.
But I think the gym helps me stay really humble.
You know what I think we're doing? I think we're trying to create... You know how one of these says it feels off?
Yeah.
Like you'll know when you're not yourself?
Mm-hmm.
I think we're recentering. I'm starting to feel off when I'm arrogant a little too. Now that we're like taking so much action. So Kevin and I we came up with this, 2 years ago?
Yeah, something like that.
So we've spent the last 2 years trying to stay centered. I think it's starting to lock in that this is who we are.
Yeah, because you're doing different. The only reason you start at a like if you start as a 0, the only way you stay there is if you do nothing.
Exactly.
If you're a 10, we know people that are 10s.
Yeah, you only stay there if you do nothing.
You do nothing.
Right.
And I think, I think that's a great point.
Like, I don't feel arrogant because how could I be? I'm failing so much in so many ways because I'm taking so much action.
Right.
And same with you. How could you be in self-doubt when you're doing
Right.
enough to get it?
You can live at 5.
Yeah, as long as you always take action.
You can live at 5. It's just, it's also like understanding that, I'm telling you, that is a thing for me. Like understanding the story I tell myself more often than not is this is going to go worse than I think. I think it's going to go worse than it actually will.
Right.
If you can live there and just understand, like, it's a lot of this is in your head.
Do you think if you take massive action, you stay at 5? Do you think we can live there long enough to where that becomes our new normal and we don't end up going back?
Yeah.
Crazy.
I
feel like that's
genuinely
happening
do.
to us, genuinely.
I genuinely do.
And maybe
think that.
my version of arrogant now is probably like an 8 compared to my old 10.
Right. And same with me, like
Like a 2. Right?
yeah, what happened recently?
Like you'll never go fully back. Remember when Joyce asked you, would you ever consider suicide again?
yeah.
And you said no. Is this why?
I don't know. No, I think I have more belief now. So like,
That's
I
what
don't know
mean.
that I would feel as hopeless. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, so you would never go back to 0.
Right.
Because you've proven enough.
Yeah. And this is how you know too. Like I've had some very important business calls, and there were times where I would have to like mastermind with Alan before, and then it got to the point where I was like, I thought about Alan. I was like, oh, maybe I should text him, and I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do this myself. That's how you know and that will be. It's almost like you have to keep testing yourself. You have to keep showing up to whatever your weakness is and proving your weakness wrong. The only reason your weakness is ingrained in you is because you've proved it right so many times.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean it's actually true. It just means it's a story you're telling yourself.
You've proved it right so many times. So an example of that is you think it's going to suck to go talk to someone, therefore you don't talk to someone. You're proving to yourself that you're...
Yeah.
So you stay. You don't move.
I remember when, for a long time, I hated the bar. I still don't enjoy the bar. But one of the reasons was, like, I would go out with people and it seemed like they would have a way better time. And I was always afraid to approach women. Me being afraid to approach women actually made me feel like I was worse at approaching women than other people. Because I would see people who were not as good looking as me, were not as in good a shape, were not as good speakers, having success with women. The only thing was they tried way more than I did. Of course they were more successful.
Right.
So, but in
they
my
could
head,
get 1 out of 10 and still be
Exactly.
better than 0 out of
Exactly.
0.
But in
Right.
my head, since I kept doing that behavior and I kept getting the same result, I assumed I was terrible with women.
Yeah.
And that's where a lot of people are. That's where a lot of people are. All right, we got 6 minutes, and the timer's going to go off.
Yes.
So I think that one of the most important things out of all this is to get around somebody who is the opposite of you, but they have similar core values. I cannot explain enough why that similar core values is important, because some people, this is what it should be: getting around the opposite, but somebody who is focused on getting closer to center, and they have your similar core values. Because you want somebody who is going to rub off on you in a positive way, but you're also going to help them.
And you need to understand that whoever this person is most likely makes you feel slightly uncomfortable.
They should.
So if you're on my end and someone else gets insecure a lot, you're going to have to, in a weird way, baby them a lot in certain regards. And hand-holding can be frustrating for people on my end. On Kevin's end, you're going to think the other person's a dick or arrogant or overly confident, or maybe they're too hardcore, or maybe they don't understand, like maybe they're not as warm or loving. And so, but that's okay, because, and that's why the core values thing is so important, because if you have somewhere you can both land congruently and agree on, you can live there. And I think mutual goals is important too.
Yeah.
So for example, if we didn't have the same core values and the podcast, like that kept us in the room together for a greater end state, we would not have figured out all of this.
I know.
We wouldn't have figured out any of this.
Yeah.
I've never read this anywhere. I've never read about this. This is brand new from my awareness. I mean, I'm sure obviously psychology probably talks about this in its own form, but
We'll just keep saying we're
we'll just have to, write about it and
Yeah, I like
publish
that.
it,
I do think this is one of the most important things to understand, because it allows you to empathize with people too.
Yeah.
Like, this really helps with that. And you also, you can get a good feel of people. You can get a really good feel for people. Like when we meet somebody, I can kind of figure out where they are on the Drive to 5.
Oh, yeah.
And that means I can help serve them better. If you're really low, I'm going to coach you differently than if you're higher.
Oh, yeah.
I just am. And when I ask somebody how they want to be coached and how do you want me to keep you accountable, that helps me figure out like, okay, they're on the lower end of the Drive to 5 maybe they're not. That's one thing. And then the other thing too, this is something that I've noticed about people on the lower end of the Drive to 5, and I'm not positive that this is a full what's the word I'm looking for? Pattern yet.
Right.
But a lot of the people that I've dealt with that are on the lower end of Drive to 5, when they start to get confident, they want to take on a million things.
Oh, and then they immediately lose their confidence.
And then they immediately lose their confidence because they do 10 out of 12 things, and instead of doing 12 out of 12, to them it's a failure, and then they lose that confidence. So I guess at the end of the day, the most important thing and the most important takeaway from this episode is when you become hyper aware, when you become hyper conscious of who you are, the story that you're telling yourself, the filters that you live your life through, and you start to control those things, your life will be completely different because you go from being a passenger to the driver.
Right.
And that is like the main takeaway. If you guys can work on this, and again, reach out to Alan and myself and we can help you. Like if you tell me about yourself, I might be able to give you a number of where you are in the Drive to 5.
Oh, for sure. That's one of the things I ask often on my calls.
Right.
Which is like, where are you on the Drive to 5? A lot of times what I'll ask is, how are you 0 to 10? And then usually that will tell me how hard I can be or how soft, depending.
Do you have anything else? We have 2 minutes.
Yeah, so action's the cure-all. I just want to say a couple things. So if you're on my end, one thing that's helped me tremendously is fitness. So I don't care how confident you are. The weights don't care. That will humble you every single time when you try to build strength in the gym. So that's huge. If you're on Kevin's end, that actually might help you build confidence because you might assume you're weaker than you are. And to me, I think physical fitness, you don't rely on anyone else. If you say you can get up and do something that's challenging, so if you want to drive to 5, regardless of which end you're on, you're going to need to set the intention to do something challenging. If you're on Kevin's end, you're going to overcome the challenge. It's going to go better than you thought, and you're going to feel good about yourself. If you're on my end, you're going to get challenged, get humbled, and then be closer to 5 as well. So I think physical fitness, personally, I always say fitness saved my life. I think one of the reasons is this, without me knowing it. It forced me to stay humble every day because no matter how great you think you are at something, the weights, there's always another level.
The weights don't lie.
The weights don't lie. That is the closest to reality you can get.
Oh,
man.
yeah? Yeah, they don't care.
They don't care about what you know.
Gravity.
Yeah.
They live by one law and one law only.
Right.
Gravity.
Right.
And either you win or you get deaded.
Yep.
All right, we good?
We're good to go.
Ladies and gentlemen, I challenge you to take a close look at yourself and figure out where you are on the Drive to 5 and then live life accordingly. Drive to that 5 because 5 is a great place to live. We hope you enjoyed this, and we will talk to you on Sunday.
Talk to you soon.
Bye.